Good morning. This is the National Weather Service here in San Angelo, Texas, with your weekly weather briefing. If we take a look at the key points for this week, you'll notice that we have quite a bit of activity going on. A series of upper level disturbances, a couple of days with a pronounced dry line, and a few cold frontal boundaries across the area will provide an opportunity for thunderstorm development through the next 7 days. And with some of this activity, particularly on Monday and Tuesday, large hail, damaging winds, isolated tornadoes, and excessive rainfall may lead to flash flooding. So that's definitely something that we need to keep an eye on going forward. But in addition to that, for today, Memorial Day, we're also going to see many locations across our area in the triple digits. So the heat will also be a headline for today. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at today's severe weather outlook. You'll notice that today the three hazards that we're predominantly concerned about are damaging winds, large hail, and an isolated tornado. Some of this activity is largely expected to form to the east of the dry line, which will include areas that are located in the dark green and yellow. That's where we think the bulk of the activity is going to develop. And again, the timing on this is going to be during the afternoon and the evening, say about 3 p.m. onward. So in addition to that, the frontal boundary will largely be stalled up across portions of the big country. And so the main takeaway with this is that we have a couple of features here that will largely be producing this activity. We do think in general it'll be pretty isolated in nature, but nonetheless, anything that does develop can become severe rather quickly. And as you can see there with those three hazards, we're looking at damaging winds, large hail, and an isolated tornado. So with respect to Tuesday now, Tuesday is really going to be the bigger day for severe weather potential. We have a slight risk across the majority of the area, and you'll notice that pretty much all 24 counties that we cover out here in West Texas are included in at least a marginal risk for severe weather. So this is really the day that we think that we're going to see a higher amount of coverage, so it's going to be more likely that we'll see this activity develop. And not only that, but we're also looking at the severity of the activity will be worse than what we were expecting for Memorial Day. So for Tuesday, we're looking at damaging winds 70 miles per hour and above potentially, as well as large hail that's 2 inches in diameter or larger potentially. So definitely a uptick in the severity of the hazards, as well as we're going to continue to see a chance for an isolated tornado with some of this activity as well. So increasing coverage and increasing severity is one of the key takeaways with this system. And largely what we have going on is we'll see a cold front that'll be pushing across the big country, which will bring us a little bit of relief from some of the triple digits that we saw for Memorial Day. But along that frontal boundary, we do expect that some isolated thunderstorms will develop across the big country. And then eventually it may merge into more of a line, which we're going to go into a little bit more detail with respect to the three hazards here in just a moment. So let's take a look at the hail outlook first. And again, as I previously mentioned, mainly across the frontal boundary in the big country, which is where we're going to see some of those isolated thunderstorms initially, especially in that little hatched area that includes Abilene and Sweetwater. We think that that's probably the most likely place that we're going to see some of that 2-inch in diameter hail and larger. It's not to say that areas like San Angelo and Brownwood that are outlooked in that brown shaded area cannot see large hail. They certainly can. We just think that the worst severity is probably going to be across the big country with respect to the hail threat. We can still see hail larger than the size of a quarter in some of these other locations that are outlooked as well. So definitely keep that in mind if you're across the big country, say the I-20 corridor in areas along and near there. That's really where the majority of the hail potential is going to be located. Now, with respect to the tornadoes, again, largely as that line moves through along the frontal boundary, we're kind of focusing in on those areas as well, but that'll include areas up around Abilene near Interstate 20 and southward down into San Angelo and Brady. So those areas in dark green are the areas that we have outlook for seeing one or two of these thunderstorms to potentially produce a tornado. So that's not something that we can completely rule out. But once all those isolated cells kind of drift towards the south, we do expect along that frontal boundary that they may start to increase in number, and the coverage will increase as well. Potentially, and it's still a little bit uncertain exactly how this will evolve. It may eventually kind of form into a line as it moves south of the big country. And we think that once that happens, really the big takeaway is going to be that once that line forms, if it does form, we really think that that'll increase our chances for seeing damaging winds. In particular, that hatched area is locations where we're looking at potentially seeing the strongest, most severe wind gusts. So as we said in a previous slide, we're looking at winds in excess of 70 miles per hour with that are possible. So definitely keep in mind that as this event unfolds, that we'll see a little bit of a transition in the hazards away from the large hail and tornado threat. Will kind of transition to more of a damaging wind threat towards the end of this event. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not to say that later on during the evening we can't still have large hail or potentially a tornado. It's just we think that the best chances are going to be a little bit earlier in the afternoon across the big country. So definitely keep that in mind as we go through this event. And then the other thing for Tuesday that we'll have to keep an eye on is the potential for excessive rainfall that may lead to flash flooding. A good portion of our area is outlooked in the slight risk for excessive rainfall. All of our area, all 24 counties across West Texas that we covered, have at least a marginal risk of seeing it. So the best chances, the most likely locations that are going to see this activity are the areas that are covered in yellow on this map. So definitely going to have to keep an eye out as we could see some efficient rainfall production in some of these thunderstorms as they move through. So if you're looking for a forecast beyond Tuesday, here's a general look at what we're expecting temperature-wise. Again, notice that's going to be very hot for Memorial Day. Many locations will be well into the triple digits. I mean, we have a forecast of 105 for this afternoon for the city of Junction. So as we get this cold frontal boundary that'll be moving through the area, you'll notice, on Tuesday and Wednesday, much cooler conditions back behind that cold front as the cold air filters into our area. And then after that, for Thursday, Friday onward, we're going to see a slight increase in temperatures back into the upper 80s. So the key takeaway is with respect to the heat, today is probably going to be the worst that we see this week. Now, with respect to your rain chances, here's an outlook. As we mentioned in the key points, all the way through Friday, through the end of this week and into the weekend, we're going to be carrying chances for rain. So it's going to be quite a few series of disturbances, as well as the previously mentioned dry line and the cold frontal boundary provide many opportunities for rainfall as we go through the next 7 days. Pretty much through Friday, we're going to carry an excessive rainfall outlook will have us in a marginal risk for seeing potentially some flash flooding with some of this activity. So we're going to have to keep that in mind as we go through the remainder of this week and into the weekend. That's about all we have for you for today. Here's our contact information. The next briefing is expected for Thursday unless something changes that we need to update. And if that's the case, then we'll go ahead and provide that update if needed. But otherwise, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your time. Have a great day.